What really happens in the ending of BlackCab? Twists, ghosts, and madness explained. BlackCab is one of those psychological thrillers that sticks with you long after the credits roll, not because of jump scares or gore, but because of its unsettling, ambiguous ending. Bruce Goodison's film, starring Nick Frost, delves into themes of grief, madness, and the supernatural, and its final moments are open to interpretation. So if you're wondering what really happens at the end of BlackCab, you're not alone. In this video, we'll break down the twist, the ghosts, the psychological unraveling, and the tragic fate of the characters. Let's dive deep into the haunting and confusing conclusion of BlackCab and explore the mysteries behind the film's final scene.
First, you look like a warning.
The setup, a simple, sinister ride. At its core, BlackCab begins like any typical thriller. A couple hails a cab after a night out, but the driver isn't what he seems. Anne, Sinov Carlson, and Patrick, Luke Norris, are a couple at a crossroads in their relationship. Anne is uncertain about taking Patrick back after his betrayal, and things are already tense between them. When they meet Ian, Nick Frost, their seemingly friendly cab driver, things take a dark turn. The ride seems innocent enough at first, with Ian jokingly putting Patrick in his place for being a selfish jerk. But things quickly escalate when Ian reveals that he's not just a random driver, but a man who's obsessed with the ghostly presence that haunts Maple Hill, a notorious stretch of road. Ian kidnaps Anne and Patrick, tasers Patrick, and ties Anne up, preparing to take them on a ride that will alter their fates forever. This setup already hints that something much more sinister is at play than just a simple kidnapping. The road they're headed to isn't just known for its darkness, but for being haunted by a restless spirit searching for her lost child. But as the film progresses, we soon realize that the real horror isn't just the ghost, it's the psychological torment that Ian has been hiding all along. The ghost and its tragic history. Before we dive into the specifics of the ending, it's essential to understand the ghost that haunts Maple Hill. The spirit is tied to a tragic story, a woman who, after fleeing an abusive relationship, crashed her car while trying to escape. Tragically, the woman died in the crash, but her young daughter, left alone in the woods, perished a few days later. The mother's spirit has since been trapped on Maple Hill, searching for her lost child, endlessly roaming the road in search of a replacement. When Ian drives Anne and Patrick down this road, Anne begins to see the ghostly figure of the woman who appears to her several times during the journey. The ghost is linked to Anne not because she's pregnant, as Ian believes, but because she's grieving a loss of her own. This connection sets the stage for the film's final act, where grief and madness collide in an eerie and confusing climax.
Things, horrible things. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed it.
Ian's motivations. A father's desperation. Ian, it turns out, is more deeply tied to the haunting than we first realize. While he initially appears to be just a creepy, unstable cab driver, his motivations are rooted in fear, guilt, and an obsession with protecting his own son. Ian is a father, and his relationship with his wife is falling apart. His wife no longer trusts him, and he's been emotionally distant from his son. Ian claims that the ghost of Maple Hill has followed him home, particularly fixated on his child. This is where things get complicated. Ian believes that by offering Anne's unborn baby to the ghost, he can protect his own son. Why Anne? Because in Ian's eyes, the ghost chose her. When Ian picked her up from the hospital maternity ward on an earlier occasion, he saw the ghost lurking beside her. This supernatural encounter convinced him that Anne and her unborn child were the key to breaking the curse that had haunted him. But as the film progresses, we discover that there's more to Ian's obsession than just protecting his son. Ian's twisted motives are rooted in his own psychological instability, and his behavior becomes increasingly erratic. He claims that the ghost had been tormenting him, taking on the form of his wife, even communicating to him through her likeness. This suggests that Ian, already mentally fragile, has been manipulated by the ghost, driven to madness by his own guilt and fear.
You took my baby! You took it! You stole it!
The twist. Anne's grief, not her pregnancy, is the key. So what's the deal with Anne's pregnancy? Initially, it seems that Anne's child is the reason the ghost is drawn to her, but the final act reveals that Anne's connection to the ghost is far more complicated than that. Anne's pregnancy is a red herring. It's not the child the ghost is after, but the grief that Anne carries. Anne's true tragedy is revealed in a pivotal moment. She has had a miscarriage. She wasn't at the hospital because she was pregnant, but because she had recently lost the baby. The ghost, whose spirit is consumed with the grief of losing her own child, is drawn to Anne, not because she's pregnant, but because she too is a woman suffering the pain of a lost child. The ghost seeks out Anne because they share this deep, painful bond, and the connection between them runs far deeper than Anne's pregnancy. This twist shifts the entire dynamic of the film. Anne's grief becomes her link to the ghost. Both women are trapped in cycles of mourning and longing, and their fates become intertwined. This revelation also explains why Anne was so consistently haunted by the ghost even before she met Ian. The final act, a terrifying loop of suffering. Now we get to the most confusing part of BlackCab, the ending itself. After Ian crashes the cab and appears to hit Anne, we're led to believe she's dead. However, in the moment that follows, Ian gets out of the cab, searches for Anne's body, and finds nothing. There is no trace of Anne, which leads to the conclusion that she is, in fact, dead. But the film's final moments leave room for doubt. As Ian drives away, we see Anne's ghost sitting in the back seat of his cab. This suggests that Anne, like the ghost before her, has become a part of the haunting. Her spirit has replaced the one that tormented Ian, and she is now trapped in an endless loop, cursed to haunt Maple Hill for eternity. The film plays with the idea of a time loop, which becomes clear when the cab crosses the same road sign twice earlier in the movie. This repetition hints that the characters are stuck in a cycle that they can't escape. Anne's death and transformation into a ghost represent the final stage of her suffering. She, like the ghost, is now condemned to the same endless search for a lost child, forever bound to the cursed road. What does it all mean? Anne's fate and the curse continues. The ending of BlackCab is meant to be a puzzle, a deliberate ambiguity that leaves us questioning the nature of the haunting and the fate of its characters. Anne's grief, which initially seems to be the trigger for her connection to the ghost, ultimately becomes her doom. She has replaced the ghost as the new tormented spirit of Maple Hill, doomed to roam the road in search of something she can never reclaim. As for Ian, his fate is equally grim. While the ghost initially focused on his son, it's clear that Ian's actions, his mental instability, and his own obsession with the supernatural have led him down a dark path. By offering Anne's baby to the ghost, Ian inadvertently seals his own doom, trapping himself in an eternal cycle of suffering. The final image of Anne's ghost in Ian's cab suggests that she, too, will perpetuate the haunting, further spreading the curse to anyone who crosses her path. In a sense, the film's ending symbolizes the unending nature of grief and trauma. Anne, in her pursuit of the ghost, has become part of the curse, just as the ghost has become part of her. The loop of pain continues, and just as the ghost lost her child, Anne has now lost her life. And like the spirit before her, she will continue to haunt Maple Hill in search of something that can never be found.
Little fucker!
You said you'd let him live!
Why BlackCab leaves us hauntingly unsatisfied. The ambiguity of BlackCab's ending is both its strength and its weakness. On one hand, the open-ended conclusion allows for multiple interpretations, letting the viewer ponder what happened to Anne, whether she is alive or dead, and what the ghost truly wanted. On the other hand, this vagueness can feel unsatisfying for those seeking a clear-cut resolution. What makes BlackCab so unsettling is that it doesn't provide closure. Instead, it suggests that grief is cyclical and that we are all susceptible to being haunted by our pasts. Anne's fate, while tragic, mirrors that of the ghost before her. Both women are lost, trapped in their own grief, and bound to a road that offers no escape. Conclusion: a horror that sticks with you. BlackCab is a psychological horror film that plays on themes of grief, guilt, and the inescapable nature of pain. The ending's a reflection of the emotional and psychological torment that both Anne and Ian endure, and it suggests that they are both victims of a haunting that has no resolution. By the time the credits roll, Anne's fate, whether she's alive or dead, feels almost irrelevant. What matters is that she's now part of the cycle of suffering. And in this way, BlackCab's true horror lies not in the ghosts we can see, but in the ones that we carry with us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of BlackCab's ending, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more movie analyses, and let us know in the comments what you think happened at the end of the film.
Now what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.